don't know what to say.
Right, we're live.
I don't know what to say.
Live reaction to Aaron's t-shirt.
And the picture. Oh, he's just a big knob jockey. I don't know what's. Oh, that's just mean.
Right.
That is just proper mean.
Cool. Stream's up and working.
I'm just going on to live. I can't look at him anymore.
Just
can you block
up.
people's? Yeah, I'm just not
Just
going to.
Yeah, you can.
The screen
You
like
can.
this.
Yeah, you can hide his video. There's no reason why. Just but that would be a very unprofessional. So.
Yeah, and
Yeah, that's it. To be fair, yeah. Right, should we just see what happens then?
yeah.
I remember.
He's actually remembered to record. Have you put the sound on as well?
Yeah, sounds on. Tested it earlier. I'm all set. See? That was not too loud for you?
No.
That was all good.
All right.
Well, not enough. Hang on. I'm just going to have reverb play now because you have to go on to the live thing and then you have to press mute because otherwise you don't. Right. Anyway, we're live.
Are you ready?
Oh, man.
Okay. Starting
I'm
the time
shocked
sequence.
that was even here. I totally forgot about it.
I mean, that is very on brand.
I did. Yeah.
Verstappen has taken the checkered flag to win. That was absolutely brilliant. Oh, Sergio Perez is giving it everything. Oh, no, Maggie.
Lost Aaron. That's a good start.
Aaron's video's gone. Hurrah! I don't have to look at him anymore.
Oh well. We're live now.
And at the back, that's George Russell out of this race. Daniel Ricciardo makes contact there with Kevin Magnussen, and there's a second contact.
Well, we did have a pay driver for you, but he seems to have disappeared off the stream.
Aaron!
So, oh, there he is. He's back.
Fuck my life. What the fuck is... Oh, for fuck's sakes!
This is great for
Like,
the...
what is wrong with you? Right. This guy has come on. And I think his main objective is to piss me off. Currently, if you're not on the live stream or you're not watching this on YouTube, the giant bell end... Oh, sorry. Well, hang on.
Really enunciate the bell there, Carl. Really enunciate
Princess
the
or
bell.
something? Princess? Is that the word that Verstappen used against this guy? Has decided to not only wear a t-shirt with George Russell's sodding logo on it, the Williams hat, I actually quite like the Williams hat. It doesn't say anything about George Russell. So, bollocks, it does. Yeah, it's facing to me, it's fine. He's also got a picture behind him of the child.
Use your words, Carl.
And then 63 number one fan, and then he's put on his screen George Russell 63 number one fan. That's what his name. Oh, I give up. Like, what did Verstappen call him? A princess after putting a hole in his side
He
or
called
something?
him a not nice word beginning with D.
A dick?
Yeah.
We're not a grid talk. We can swear, Aaron. It's fine.
Come on. We want to hear you swearing on this podcast.
Aaron, this is that show. Yeah, and he's just wound me up so much. I don't know what to say. And I might as well just go home now.
So I can change it.
No,
it's fine.
Make him
It's
suffer.
fine.
Make him suffer.
I normally have to suffer with just listening to Tom, so it makes a change to.
Well, we've got to listen to you suffer by listening to you talking about what you can remember happening for the Grand Prix weekend. So, should we jump straight into it?
Oh.
By the way, this is Aaron from AH.
Oh yeah, sorry,
Aaron Harper.
Hello, Aaron.
He's joining us today as this week's pay driver to go talk through the Baku Grand Prix. So, over to you, Carl.
So, well. Right. I mean, this was last week. I can't remember what happened yesterday or 2 days ago. Normally, I'm like, Sundays, I just have to leave it till Monday and I can carry on Tuesday. Qualifying was on Friday. It feels so long ago. I can't remember really what happened. Probably, oh yeah, Nick Debris did Nick Debris things. That's all I really remember. He smashed into a wall, I think. And I think that, and the clerk did quite well. And George Russell ended up in 10th or something, 11th on the qualifying. So that was quite good. That was like the highlight of the day. And then we had, right. So I'm all confused already. What the hell happened? Because we had 4 weeks off, and then with a week to go, they suddenly decided to have a new plan as to what we're doing, a new race form, not even just a new qualifying format, and they just gone, yeah, here's the schedule. I'm just going to throw it up in the air. So much so, Sky News didn't even know about it. No one seemed to fucking know about it. Sky F1 themselves on their own website didn't know about it. It was just completely embarrassing because no one knew what time anything was on. At one point, it was on at 2:00. Then it was, anyway. So, do you know what? I quite like the Saturday. I like qualifying. I'm never one for qualifying. Who really cares about qualifying unless you're in Monaco? Baku is a decent racers race, if that makes sense. A decent street track. You're not following each other. Although, let's not cut to that point just yet.
No, not yet.
Spoiler alert. We're having to see a spoiler alert there. But it was quite interesting to have another qualifying, which, yeah, I think even Ted came up with it, and maybe someone else, isn't that what someone said about insanity, that you constantly do the same things and end up with the same results? It sort of did end up like that. And then, so what was interesting though, and I quite liked, was qualifying and racing in a day. That was interesting. And I quite liked that system. And it definitely felt like Saturday became a thing, because normally Saturdays are qualifying and then they're only for an hour and they're not really much, you're sort of, okay, grand, compared to the race, which is the build up and everything. So it felt like a whole day of racing. And they chose Baku of all places to try this. I have no idea why. Again, I think Nick DeVries hit a wall because that's what he does. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm sure someone else will tell me. And I think Sonoda hit a wall as well. Again, because that's quite normal. And then during the race, Largent Sojan. Largent Sojan. Largent Sogent decided to hit a wall quite spectacularly, so much so that he didn't actually enter the race. But I can't remember when that was. Was that during qualifying?
Yeah, he crashed in. He crashed in sprint shootout and couldn't take part in the sprint.
So that was interesting, and then we ended up with the sprint race. Jesus, this is meant to be quite short, but it seemed to, because the weekend went on forever. This is going on forever. I'm sorry. So the Saturday race was all interesting at the beginning. Someone else hit a wall, probably Sonoda, probably De Vries, I'm not sure which. They're quite interchangeable, those two. I've noticed. Like, they might be racing for different teams, but they are so interchangeable. And
that wasn't my wedding. That wasn't my wedding ring dropping onto the desk. It's never come off. It's never come off.
Oh yeah, awkward. So that's all gravy. And then the race, it was all quite fun at the beginning, and then it just, because it's 100 kilometers, the sprint race is always going to be like this, I think, because you're going to have the fun at the beginning, and then it's going to go into race pace because they're basically testing out for the GP. You're never going to get an interesting second half of a sprint race. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I have been wrong. But I don't think there's overly going to be that exciting ever on a sprint race. I mean, you might as well shorten it down to 50K. It'd be more interesting. And stick everyone on softs. Oh, yeah, this was the thing. They had that whole tyre thing that really pissed me off as well, which then meant that because of the way the tyres were, it meant that he couldn't, because Lando had used all his tyres. I just lost the will to live with trying to understand it. And I just didn't quite understand that. That was just bullshit. Just give them a fresh set of tires. Here's an extra set of tires you have to use for this, right? You have to use for this qualifying. Here's two sets of mediums and here's a soft. now go off. And I can understand as to why they had to pick and choose. Although, 18 others managed to do it, except for two.
Well, should we actually kind of divert onto that at the moment? Because we seem to have covered off a lot of what we thought about the sprint format already. So should we kind of like
go
on to that?
Yeah,
now?
let's do a sprint section.
Yeah,
It's taken so long. The Miami Grand Prix is about to start.
Yes.
Yeah, all right. And I haven't even got to the race.
If this was a sprint weekend, we would have already had qualifying.
Oh, Jesus.
So, yeah, I mean, you've made some really good points there about the qualifying and it happening so much earlier.
Did everyone hear that? I made good points.
Before the... I didn't say it was right, it was just good. But it was being so much earlier to the race, it kind of... There's a bit of a natural disconnect there between the qualifying and the race, which is kind of, some people will like that, some people won't. I got no major issue with that part of it. The tyre allocation part of it, I think maybe there's something to say about on these weekends, you just say it's free allocation because you lose 2 tyres at the end of practice 1, you lose 2 tyres at the end of practice 2, and all that kind of, it just throws
you lose 2 tyres?
Yeah, 2 sets of tyres. So
like 2 tyres. What they're doing wheelies all the way through?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
so
I
I think maybe there's something to be said about maybe de-restricting the tyre use with that's a massive phone according to my perspective on your screen there, Carl.
Sorry.
So it's. I think there's something you said about maybe changing the format in that sense because the way it worked out is you have to use a new set of tyres, of soft tyres in Q3, and you couldn't do it because Lando had used all this new tyres. Why couldn't he have just gone out on old tyres? If you give the teams the freedom to use the tyres how they want, then they may well try and do something different.
Wasn't there some rumour that if they did do that, they could use wet tyres or something?
Yeah,
if there was 2 people
going around on wets and just having a duel, it would fit if Tsunoda and Norris had got into the top 10 like they had in Friday qualifying. They could have just gone around on inters or 4 wets and just had a little competition within themselves, which would have been absolutely hilarious and totally Formula One because they've concocted this plan. They've had 4 weeks to sort this out and they decided to do it.
Sorry, hang on. They've had a lot longer than 4 weeks. They've just decided in the last 4 weeks to throw it all up in the air and get a shotgun and shoot it.
They could have put it to the teams and got it sort of passed by beforehand, but everyone I think was on their holidays. They didn't want to bother them.
You can reduce the tyre allocation, and then make it free usage. Because at the moment we've got tyres that they use for half an hour and then put them in the bin. So why not just But
this is the whole thing. They're trying to be green, and they're not using the tyres.
But they're doing more competitive sessions, which is actually less track time when you think about it. They're getting like half an hour's track time instead of 2 hours. Yeah. When you think about the sprint shootout and instead of a practice session. So I just think that maybe there's something to be done there. There's definitely some tweaks that need to be made. I'm all for reducing the on-track time and making it more competitive, but then just free up the allocation of tyres because there's no need to limit those tyres. I don't think. I don't know what your thoughts are, and I'll let you get a word in.
I thought it worked actually. I thought the forcing teams to use specific tyres. We're going to get this in Imola in a couple of weeks. They're going to be forced to use hard tyres in Q1, mediums in Q2, and soft in Q3.
It's sort of like a soft test, wasn't it, for that idea?
Yeah, kind of. It was like a dummy run, but I think it really, really worked because on mediums and obviously the shortened time as well, it kept all the cars on track because you could do multiple laps with it. And then in SQ3, they only did one proper lap because by that point the soft tyres were cooked and they weren't going to give you the performance. But it kept cars on track, and like when you have a normal qualifying session, they go out on a soft set of tyres, they do their lap, they go back in, and then there's this lull sort of halfway through. And you didn't get that in the Saturday session because there wasn't an opportunity for it. Everyone had to be on track all the time. And, if you made a mistake or you didn't get the lap in time, like with Tsunoda, he was on a good lap. He was like 100 meters from the line and he would have got through. But because what's his name? Sergeant
Logan.
Largent
Sergeant, yeah.
Largent Sergeant.
Because he crashed, the red flags come out and Tsunoda was stuffed. So, he was punished even though he had the pace. So it works it's kind of ironic that it punishes a guy who's regularly down at the back, but so
but like
it works for me.
I like the idea of the tire thing. I think I don't understand why they just don't give them the set and they have to do hard mean stuff. But also, because they were on the softs, this became the problem with the last sector. And this is the same problem that we're going to have in Imola. And I think that's why they possibly did this test run at Baku. Because if they're on softs, they've only got one run in it. Do you know what I mean? That's what they were saying. Yeah. So everyone
depends on the circuit, though.
Waited, either went out mad at the beginning or just waited. There's two choices. You can't go out there and do two sort of longer runs rather than, well, 3 runs or 4 runs, 4 laps. You know, a warm up, race lap, a cool down lap, and a race lap. You know, and a cool down lap, so 5 laps. But that's the only way they can really do it. Like, that's one set of tires, and by the time they get back in, they're not going to have redo it. It just means that everyone's out on the track all at once during qualifying. Which, is that fair, or is that part of the fun?
I think that's part of the fun. They all get the same track conditions, and you know, if the first guy throws it in the wall, then they're all buggered, aren't they? So,
but that's the problem. What happens if whoever's out first? Let's be honest, it's probably the Hasses because they're nearest down there. They're normally, or the Williamses. Like if they're out first and they bin it, or sorry, I'm talking absolute bullshit. If debris bins it into a wall, and he's out first, how do you even do qualifying then? Like, how does that even work in the shortened sessions?
Well, they'd just be more pressed for time, wouldn't they, to do their laps, and it would crank the pressure up even more, which I suppose is good because you know, a lot of people advocate for one-shot quali.
I don't.
I mean, it splits opinion, and I like the fact that it's a challenge, but then I also like the opportunity that you get to see more cars on track with the way we have it now. But I think you need to do them differently. Like the qualifying for the Grand Prix needs to be the way it is now, and then sprint qualifying needs to be done differently.
The one-shot qualifying is interesting because if you were to look at the times of one on the first lap that they ever do, sometimes it throws up some random things. You know, the Williams Albon being number 1 at one. You know, depending.
I don't agree with it on a competition level because the circuit is constantly evolving and the conditions are constantly changing, and you need to give everyone the same opportunity to put in their best lap. And if you're saying one-shot qualifying, they go out one at a time. Take it in turns. The track is constantly evolving. One person might put some gravel on the track, which means the next person through's got to drive through that gravel, and then the next person that comes, that gravel's clear for them.
I still think the one shot, you still have the same time. You're just only allowed to do one racing lap, and it's up to them to how they pace themselves in space. Just let them all at it, but you only take one lap.
Oh, so they get one lap within the session. And that's it. And once they've all done one lap, that's it. Session over.
Yeah. Because I think it'd be fun because and sorry, there is a reasoning for that way. Yeah. Huh?
You could still eliminate people.
You still eliminate it. It would give everyone a fair chance, and it could be that they all sit there for 15 minutes, and I might be very right.
Well, that's we want to avoid that when you think about places.
But when you think about places like Spa or Monaco last year, you know. Magnussen did really well from that because of the rain coming in, and he went out early, and then everyone else waited, and that's what screwed them up, you know. And that's the interesting thing is that you can have a mixture, and I think mixing up the field, because we always say it's hilarious. We line them, we qualify them from fastest to slowest and wonder why the fastest car is 10 miles ahead and the last car is being lapped 3 times.
I get that, but it's also it needs to be a pure sporting competition as well, and you've got to put them somewhere. And I don't agree with reverse grids because that's just trying.
Oh no, I don't agree with reverse grids, but I think getting there by merit on the first lap, not because your track has evolved and you've hit the right timings and things. Is interesting.
But if everyone's got an equal opportunity to do that, then they can they have the chance to do that, don't they? It's, if you're, I don't like one-shot qualifying and taking it in turns because of that. That's not fair and it's not equal. I'm more on board with your other idea. I still don't like it because it doesn't promote cars on track. But I'm more on board with that.
That's the big issue, isn't it? It's getting cars on track the whole time, but then making it meritorious.
Yeah, and what if like somebody makes a mistake in front of you, you then have, and it ruins your lap. You then got no opportunity.
Do it the other way. Do it the other way. Do it the other way. Every car has to go out on track within 2 minutes of the first round. Every car has to be on track for 8 minutes or whatever.
Well, they used to do that in the fuel burning phase, didn't they? Which was just it just had people just driving around burning fuel for 10 minutes. Then they came in, put on soft tyres, and put on a quick lap. So it was effectively one-shot qualifying with a load of pointless running. So it was that was the worst qualifying format.
With no tyre changes. Then. Yeah, there we go.
I put that as the worst. I put that as worse than the elimination qualifying that they trialled in 2016.
I mean, what is interesting about. What is interesting about all of this is obviously F1 are trying to work out what to do. There's not many other sports that are evolve as quick as Formula One.
It is now. At least they're willing to try things. It never used to be like that.
But I don't know if that's a good thing. But I don't know if that's a good thing. Like football, and I'm going there. It's been 90 minutes forever. It's been on the same size pitches forever. You know, obviously pitches slightly different. I understand that. You know, it's still got 2 goals. It's still got 11 players. We're not turning around and going, oh, actually, we're going to have a penalty shootout in the middle.
No, but we are saying, okay, we're having VAR, we're having assistant referees, we're having a 4th official, we're having, you know, extra substitutions, and all the sports do it because everything about sport is eyes on the prize. They're all about getting people watching the sport because that helps grow the sport. And Formula One is a incredibly fast-growing sport at the moment, and they've got owners that are willing to try things to try and help that along. And some of it's good, some of it's bad. At least they're willing to try things, but I just don't want them to ruin the sporting element of it. As long as the stuff they come in isn't gimmicky, and it's, I mean, at the end of the day, everything is going to be gimmicky in a way. They could even say, like, back when we used to drive with you know, front engine cars and these little spindly wheels and stuff, and saying, they could say slick tyres, well, that's gimmicky. They could well say that because they used to drive all-weather tyres and saying, oh, well, what if it rains? You know, that's gimmicky. That's a lottery. So they could there's an argument to be said for all of those changes, but it's just finding that fine line. And whatever happens, I don't mind this format, but I don't want it every week.
Do you think they'll go with reverse grids?
No. I hope not. I don't think they will. There seems to be a huge stigma around it now.
The thing is, it works in Formula 2 and Formula 3. They switch the top 10 or 12 around, and it works.
Well, all I say to that is now they've kind of come around to it in F2 and F3 of reducing the number of points available for those reverse grids, and they don't reverse the entire grid. When F1 were on about it, they're on about putting Hamilton and Verstappen 19th and 20th, and I absolutely dead against that.
No, I wouldn't do that. I'd reverse the top 10.
What I wouldn't be against would be if you had normal qualifying on the Friday, and then for the sprint you didn't have a qualifying session, but you reversed the top 10 for the sprint and then awarded points that way.
But what's stopping you almost going slower to end up in 10th, so you end up in first in pole?
You'd start the race from 10th. On the Sunday.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. You win pole and you end up in 10th. How's that?
Yeah, for the sprint. Yeah,
but how's that work? How's that fair? Oh, but yeah,
because you're not getting as many points.
Princess moaning about that.
It's only 10 points. You only got 10 points on offer for the whole of the sprint.
The problem is,
and the Grand Prix is where the points are won.
This year is so tight with points, so tight with points, and we'll come on to our arguments later about Ocon, but it's so tight for points and positions, and even positions are really meaning points now. That yes, only 10 points in a sprint is going to make every bit of difference now, and that's the worry. 8 points.
It is 8, but I'm saying my proposal there was 10. At the end of the day, I don't want any reverse grids in Formula 1 at all, but if they were going to say reverse grids are coming, that would be the format that I would champion. If you're going to have one, that would be it's the least impact on the race. It's the least gimmicky because at least it means you're only affecting the sprints. It might make the sprints a bit more exciting because you've then got the fastest car in the middle of the pack coming through, and you've got midfield cars. You might end up with a situation where like Nick de Vries sneaks into 10th place with a good lap and ends up starting on pole in a sprint, and then he's just gradually falling back through the race. That might be.
Who's Nick de Vries?
But isn't that a good opportunity? I don't know if I mentioned this on the Grid Talk pod with you at the weekend. There's so few points now available.
Oh, have you been having dates together? Jesus.
We have, yeah. There's so few points now on offer to the lower midfield team. So you got the top 4 teams. They all finished on Sunday. So everywhere down to 8th place, which only offers 4 points, was gone. And then you've got 12 cars fighting literally over just 3 points and 2 positions that are going to pay points. So Albon drove a great race, but got nothing for it because no one ahead of him was close enough to battle and any potential incidents.
Yeah, and that's
George
what you're going to get.
Wasn't anywhere near Max Verstappen.
That's what you're going to get with the sprints as well. The top 4 teams are going to monopolise those points, especially now Aston Martin have made that jump. You aren't going to get a lot of points there. But who was the highest placed driver who wasn't part of those teams? I haven't used that one in a while.
Yeah. He's back. Anyway, should we talk about the race?
Yeah, should we talk about the race?
Anyway, I just want to clarify, I quite like the Saturday. I'm quite happy with it.
Yeah, I don't mind it.
I quite like the qualifying and the race. It made a Saturday. I quite like racing on Friday. And actually, it was quite nice. It's quite nice to have a long racing weekend, and I quite enjoyed that. Like sometimes you feel, especially in Australia, you feel like you've lost half. You haven't even had a race because you've had it in the morning, and then suddenly you have your day.
Love the early morning
Not this
races.
year. It lasted 2.5 hours.
No, yeah, but you know what I mean.
I love the early morning races. I would quite happily have every race at 5 a.m. Genuinely, weird. I would.
That's because you get up at that time every day.
I know, but it means that I can still do things on the weekend.
That's
and I will
true.
always get up. I will always get up at the races. 2:00 in the morning.
See, I quite
whatever.
like. You should move to Australia then. They seem to have that problem.
Yeah.
7 o'clock start would suit like wives and stuff, partners of people who watch it.
Yeah. No,
and husbands. Let's not be sexist.
That's true.
No, my wife watches it with me, so she's up with me. So it's very nice. Right.
She's a bloody Max Verstappen fan.
Right.
Anyway.
Should we do a bit of the actual race? Jesus.
Go on then.
Haven't even got to the race review yet. Right. Clean start. It was quite a clean, boring start. I mean, what Baku says, their phrase was expect the unexpected. Well, the unexpected was a really boring race. So we expected a really boring race and we got it. Let's be honest. So very clean start, very boring. There was a bit of a ruckus with Piastri and Albon, which didn't seem to make much of anything. Red Bull, so fast with DRS. They seem to, I don't know what magic powder they've got in their DRS or they haven't got. We made our bets, and of course, Prix did his usual self into the wall and like typical Prix. Russell being a dick in the pits. No idea what that's about. Oh yeah, was that when he was trying to race in? He did a race in with he raced some Stroll in or someone. Safety. The safety car took so long, and this was the whole thing. Like Max pitted as soon as the crash happened, and there was a safety car, but I don't know what that like. The safety, they've always gone the opposite way now. They've gone, oh, we're going to throw a yellow flag. Oh, we're not quite sure, are we? And oh, we're going to throw up double yellow. Oh no, is it red? No, it's safety. Give it another lap and we'll see what happens. That seems to be the latest thing. Anyway, because Verstappen came in with as soon as it crashed, were they jumping ahead or was it just that if he went around again? We'll answer that question later, I'm sure. But that meant that Perez did pit behind the safety car, which meant that his pit was shorter. But there was a bit of pit mayhem. The pit mayhem seems to be the word of the day here. Alonso on signs after the restart. That was amazing. Alonso and Alonso must be loving Stroll or something. I don't know what is going on there.
Because he's not competitive with him.
loving. Yeah, but they're very, very friendly. And do you know what? Alonso, and if anyone mentions Taylor Swift, they're getting booted out of here.
Agreed.
Do not mention Taylor Swift. I don't really care. My wife probably cares more than I do, but no one thinks it's quite real. Is it real? Anyway, Alonso, Merck battling Hamilton up against Russell. I don't know. Oh yeah, I don't know what's going on with them two. Are they getting on? They don't seem to be getting on at the moment. But maybe I'm just hoping for things. The amount of can someone go around with a road sweeper or do a litter pick around that place? Because it's completely like you can't go green in Baku. That's for starters. Stroll hits the wall but looks fine. Stroll made an error. Yep. And then fucking Castle Cam came out. What is their obsession with Castle Cam?
Hate Castle Cam.
It's the only place on the calendar you can do that. It's the only place with a castle, so why not?
Why not? Because it looks shit and no one
it doesn't look great. But
it doesn't look
terrible.
great. Although we all quite liked the MSC camera angle where they were down during the safety car. That was quite nice.
You just need someone screeching across it with like locked up brakes and stuff to ruin it.
Yeah. And then, I mean, as soon as Castle Cam came out, you knew it was getting a bit boring because nothing happened. Lap 37, we need a safety car. Boring. So bored, I started questioning why the pit boards are not electronic. Can someone answer me that? Why are the pit boards not electronic? I had no idea. Yeah, I don't understand why they use the clippy boards. Don't understand. Like, it's so much easier to send the data down. Anyway. Oh, Jesus, Lance Stroll passed Hulkenberg. Jesus, the excitement. And then nothing happens. And then it all happens at the end with the Parc Fermé. Like, so Ocon being super Ocon, proving that tyres can last for fecking forever if you actually care for them. Not that I'm a fan of Ocon. Came into the pits. Okay. He came into the pits and the Egypt of AFIA had put out the Parc Fermé barriers and then allowed the press to come and stand around the Parc Fermé barriers. Sorry, I'm being distracted by Aaron. That's amazing. You can actually do that. So, I mean, I've got an opinion on that. I think we'll dive into that. And I think we'll dive into Verstappen and the Perez and the bullshit that comes out Christian Horner's mouth. Perez was lucky. Bullshit. Oh, Jesus Christ. And now Tom's put up Taylor Swift. You're the one that didn't want to talk about him. Just saying. Anyway, I've got my drive in the dick of the day. So that's basically it. So go on.
This is just turning into the Annoy Distract Carl podcast.
I promise I was listening to you throughout all that.
No. Well, to be honest, you got as bored as I did during the race. Yeah. So
I definitely wasn't changing the graphics to @Taylor Swift as well in the corner.
You've missed out the Y.
Oh, I have, haven't I? Taylor Swift. Oh well, there's my
how you deal with this. I've got to learn how to deal with this stuff.
It's just software. It's all software. Because then I can show you all my mess there. Look.
Messy.
There we go.
Did you see my my fancy changeover earlier? I can't remember if you saw it earlier.
No, it didn't come on. It didn't come on.
Let me show you.
There's a fancy changeover.
Little transition. Nice bit of advertising there for Aaron Harper Grand Prix.
It's all gone now, Cole.
There we go.
Yeah. So anyway, yes. How to unpick that? So, flag application. I think I like what they do in that they don't just like. One thing I hate with IndyCar, for example, is like as soon as someone loses a front wing, it's a full course caution. And like I like what Formula One are doing in that they're if there's a car stopped in sector 1 and all the other cars are in sector 2, then allow the racing until it gets to that point in case the marshals get it clear in time, and then pull the flag out. So I'm fine with that because it was where it was in the race. There was plenty of time. No cars were anywhere near it. But one thing I don't like is
it just seems to have taken a long time compared to other races, and maybe they're learning.
Well, because it was fairly early in the race, the cars were still not that spread out, and they weren't sure whether De Vries was going to be able to get out or not. I mean, it was obvious if you saw his broken suspension that he wasn't going to get out. But Red Bull didn't see that. They just saw him stopped and thought, oh, he'll just reverse out of there and carry on. So it's not going to be a safety car. So they just carried on boxing. Yeah. But equally, they had such a fast car, it didn't matter. And also the fact that Perez's pace was so good, he was about to get into a fight with Max Verstappen, and if Perez ended up being a fortuitous victor because of a safety car, then that's not really a bad thing, because it basically takes that fight away, and they don't have to, Max Verstappen can say, well, I lost that race because of a safety car, when in reality, Perez was the quicker driver for once. So it was a zero risk strategy for Red Bull, because they were always going to get a 1-2 out of it anyway, and they definitely weren't going to get screwed by a safety car because Perez was going to get there anyway. So that's my thoughts on it anyway.
Is Carl still with us?
Probably not, but you gone? Just... Oh, yep, your screen's frozen. But carry on, Aaron. What's your thoughts on the flag application?
I think the safety car robbed us of a really interesting battle between Perez and Verstappen. Yep. It would have been thoroughly fascinating to see how Verstappen defended against Perez if Checo launched an attack, because we've seen how he defends against other drivers. I mean, it was rich for him to come out and be saying that he doesn't like it when other people don't take responsibility. Sao Paulo 2021, like, just evidence for the contrary. So for him to be coming out and saying things like that, it would have been very interesting to see how he dealt with an attack from his teammate, because he just hasn't had that since Daniel Ricciardo. And ironically, that would have been at Baku, where it all went a bit pear-shaped for Red Bull. So I think we lost a really interesting battle there. But what was also very interesting was how Verstappen wasn't able to stay out of DRS range to Perez, and how Perez was able to gap Verstappen and essentially win comfortably in the end. He didn't really have to look in his mirrors and think, okay, he's coming to get me. He just got on with his race and pulled away, which was, it was the drive of an accomplished race winner now, and that's what Perez has become.
Yeah, absolutely. And Perez was in Verstappen's DRS and pushing, just managing his tyres better and looking like he was going to pounce. And Verstappen never once got into Perez's DRS. And even if he did, I'm not sure he would have been able to stay there, because Perez just seemed to have much better tyre warm-up and better tyre degradation than Verstappen as well. So I think without the safety car, we do have a Red Bull fight. So stopping Verstappen and then there being a safety car probably was a good thing for Red Bull.
Yeah, it might have saved them from themselves.
Yeah, and unfortunately,
I've missed a whole decent conversation while I was away.
It suddenly got professional, and
I need to get the Hamilton song. What did I miss?
I said
what did I miss?
It would have been interesting to see how Perez dealt with Verstappen. It would have been interesting to see how Verstappen dealt with Perez if Perez was trying to overtake him.
Yes, that's what we were saying.
Oh, Perez would have overtaken him.
Absolutely.
There's no way. I think he was on fire and Verstappen wasn't. Like,
my whole was thing on fire.
That was in the sprint. My whole thing, that was in the qualifying, wasn't it? Practice. Jesus, that was too long ago. My whole thing is Verstappen was not taken away from that Perez. It was not taken away from that win, because if he was any good, he would have caught up with Perez, and he couldn't catch up with Perez at any point.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, in that he was never once in Perez's DRS, whereas Perez was in Verstappen's DRS.
Never. So this whole bullshit that Christian Horner and everyone's like, oh, he's being all diplomatic. No, he's just being a favoritist he's just got a favourite son. Let's be honest.
Verstappen was just beaten hands down at the weekend.
But he should have just gone. He should have gone. Oh, well, you got second. Perez is first. Well done, team. That's what it should have been.
To be fair to Verstappen as well, Verstappen took it very well at the end. He shook his hand and said congratulations. There was nothing. He had nothing. He knew that Perez was the better driver on the day.
Yeah. After the day before, he had to take it magnanimously, didn't he?
Yeah. And I have to say as well, like, I hate the way that Red Bull just enable Verstappen's behaviour in the way, like Horner said in the after that argument with George Russell, it's a good job Russell kept his crash helmet on. Like, that for me is just an inciting comment. And the way like his radio, Giampiero Lambiase, comes over and he feeds into Max's conspiracy theories and it, like,
the takeover, the comment. Yeah. Oh, you managed to get past him without crashing into it. Like,
but they do it. They've been doing it for years, and all it does is
petty.
enables his petty behaviour. Petty is the perfect word for it. It just enables that behaviour, and it's really unprofessional. And all it does is put Max Verstappen in this negative mindset, which is why he ends up getting so irate in these situations. And it's you hear Bono on stuff, and if something happens to Hamilton, like you look at, I mean, I don't want to go back to it, but a perfect example, because I listened to the radio for it, was Abu Dhabi 21. When the safety car comes out, Lewis says, "Oh, that screwed me," and Bono's like, "Yeah, you know, that okay, let's just keep going." You know, it doesn't incite anything.
You've got this. You've got this. He says you've got it. Come on, you know.
Yeah. There's not this, look, we've been wronged, go prove them right, or anything like that. Go on, let's do it on track, you know, all that kind of stuff. He just keeps it professional, and that's the difference between the two teams there, and other teams as well. I'm not just singling out Mercedes in that. This is supposed to be a point about the negative approach that Red Bull take. And
I think Red Bull,
we are the victim attitude, which really annoys me.
The problem with Red Bull is that, like, although it's run by an 80-year-old dodgy old geezer now,
he doesn't run it. He's just an advisor.
Yeah, well, anyway, I was talking about
Horner's not looking good for 80, is he?
Looking very good for 80. I mean, Jerry's not looking that good for 80 anymore. But sorry, that was low. That's really low.
Old Spice, isn't it?
Yeah.
Old Spice.
Slap that on your face.
Christian Horner does.
Anyway,
slaps it on her face. No, they're not going
there. No.
This podcast just got X-rated.
You know what I did like about Baku? The lack of famous people floating around and being really annoying. I was saying this to Laura. I said, I'd quite like to go to Baku. Of all the races, I'd like to go to Baku. Apart from the little kids. Did you see the interview with Perez after? Oh my God!
No. He got mobbed, didn't he?
Yeah.
There was like no security,
and this girl just kept whacking him on the shoulder. It was just like, I would have fucking lobbed her one. I do not have that patience for that. Oh my God!
The Monkeyseat podcast do not endorse child battery.
Then there was this weird FIA
or
woman.
Violence of any kind.
There was this weird FIA woman
we'll get that far.
who was just walking, obviously wanting an off, and all she was doing was just shaking this pen constantly, like next to him doing this. Like, I was just like, just stop,
weird at all.
Just stop. Yeah, it was just really weird, and it was just like, anyway, yeah. Where was I? I don't know what I was talking about. Oh, Red Bull being children. That's the thing. They're just a bunch of teenagers. That's the problem with Red Bull. They have designed themselves on being a bunch of teenagers. The whole Red Bull brand is
they've been in the sport 18 years, so that sounds about right, doesn't it?
But the whole Red Bull brand, including all of their things, is all about youth and excitement and energy. And I think that just feeds through into the system. And they're basically a bunch of Elon Musks and, you know, people, geniuses that are just off the planet.
Would you say that they are the perfect underdog team, the perfect team to chase a big team like a Ferrari or a Mercedes, but they're terrible. They're like, their brand image is terrible for being the big team itself.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Yeah, absolutely. That teenager trying to cut through and
are we the victim? You know, that's they will play the victim all the time.
There's something to prove, sort of team.
Yeah. If you had Russell and Albon in that seat, you could understand sort of that whippersnapper, Albon and Ricciardo. Do you know? I could understand that sort of underdog whippersnapper. I need to get up, you know. But when they've got Verstappen and Perez, they're not almost filling that role of being that young whippersnapper because Verstappen is aged in the sense of maturity, not maturity, but in the sense of being a world champion. He doesn't have that underdog thing. So he has to have this weird teenage persona that doesn't quite match his world-class title, you know. And, you know, Formula One has always been known for having slightly out there, crazy winners. Hunt, Senna, in Senna in his day, even the Doctor, they've all had, there's all quirks about them. The Professor, even not Doctor. Doctor's from the Doctor's
the Doctor's MotoGP.
Doctor's MotoGP. I knew something. I said something more with that. But they've all got quirks. But Nick and Rosberg has a quirk. But I don't think they're the right. Like, if Mercedes or Ferrari won or were winning, you sort of just go, oh yeah, that's fine, because they're the adults. But Red Bull are a bunch of children. And it's run like a bunch of children. Even if you look at their pits team, it just feels like a really childish way. If you watch all the Drive to Survive, just the mechanics all seem really.
Again, it's the Christian
crazy.
Horner has got this character of just playing the victim all the time, and that's trying to. Why are you going for the sympathy card? You got the best car on the grid. Why are you trying to play the
sympathy card? Is that his teammate won? I don't get that.
Yes, good point. Good point.
Sorry, what? But your little brother did better than you. Oh no!
But anyway, we'll just turn over a little bit, but staying with Red Bull a little bit there. Is Checo a title contender? Do we think? I'm still not entirely convinced he is, but I mean, mathematically he is. But
if he can hang in there long enough, of course he is. But he's got to hang in there. If he can finish second and beat Verstappen on the odd occasion, there'll be a point where Verstappen fails to finish.
The advantage that he's got here is we have lost France and we have gained Las Vegas. That is another street track that he can win on. The problem is we lost China.
That's not a street track though.
There's not a street track. No. So Verstappen,
it's a banging track, to be fair.
It's a good track.
But Verstappen probably would have won China. The street tracks are where Perez is. The more street tracks we've got, the better he seems to be. So he is gaining here. Miami next week, I would not be surprised if Perez does well and wins. I would not be surprised if Verstappen doesn't do well.
I'd love to see how they manage Verstappen, just sort of touching on the childishness of that team.
Especially if you lost the championship lead. If you lost the lead to Perez.
Yeah, that'd be very interesting. They also, I know this is never going to happen.
But it has to be without a crash. If there's a crash, if Verstappen crashes, there will be like, oh, poor Verstappen. It has to be on the track, and I don't know how they'll deal with that. They will screw Perez over, and it will be interesting to see where silly season starts with that.
I think
the Ferrari Nürburgring 99 we've forgotten one of the tyres.
Yeah.
You watch, there'll be a problem in the pits with Perez, or something would happen.
I think the calendar is very front-loaded towards Perez's strengths, though. So I think it's like they're playing game of top trumps, and he's played his best 5 cards already. So I think like he's played his best 4 cards or 5 cards if you count the sprint, and he's got no good cards left now, or very few. And Verstappen's got a whole deck. So
what's he got? Singapore, Yas Marina,
Monaco.
Not Yas Marina,
Monaco. Yeah. Yeah, you say that. Yeah, how well did he do 2 years ago in the pink Mercedes? That's what sold him. That's what sold him.
That was Bahrain. That was on the Sakir circuit, wasn't it? That was the
it wasn't. It was
he won
Yas Marina.
He won in Sakir, didn't he?
And did really well in Yas Marina as well.
I don't know.
He was fourth. He was fourth, and he shouldn't have been. And then he broke down, so he didn't actually get that win.
We're talking in 2020 here, then.
Yes,
must have a look. I don't recall the 2020 race. Oh yeah, he was in 20. Yeah, in 20 he was winning.
Yeah. And then broke down or something. Had an issue.
Can't remember off the bat now. But...
Anyway, what I'm saying is that circuit's possibly one of his better ones. Other better ones are Singapore, Miami,
Monaco,
and Las Vegas. I'm guessing Las Vegas.
We don't know.
I'm guessing Las
Vegas. It's impossible to know. But yeah, it's a bit early to say. But yeah.
So he's got another 6 races. So yeah, in theory, Max is ahead.
Yeah, there's still 18 races to go, isn't there? So,
yeah.
Or 19 races. And 5 sprints.
Yeah, I think Perez has a chance. but you are right. It's all front loaded, but it would be interesting. As Aaron said, it'd be really interesting to see the management of that.
What about Alpine and McLaren? They had loads of big upgrades this weekend, and both had, I mean, obviously my boy got 9th place, which is the best you could have really hoped for. But apart from that, it was a pretty poor race for both of them. Really, not a lot of stuff on offer. What do we think about their performances?
I thought McLaren did all right. I mean, Piastri was battling, vomiting and everything the whole weekend, which can't have been fun. Norris did what he does best in a McLaren, finished best of the rest. Alpine did what Alpine do, and they just shoot themselves in the foot because they can't build anything that lasts 2 minutes.
Is the common denominator here Otmar? just saying. Is the common denominator?
No, I think the common denominator is Enstone, to be honest. They've not really produced a reliable car since probably, 2010? Something like that. I'm trying to think the last time they actually had a reliable car that was fast.
Yeah,
maybe 2012.
I think that was it. That year Robert Kubica was racing for them.
Jeez.
That was 2010. Yeah, he was really good that year, actually.
Yeah, I just don't remember them being particularly good in a very long time.
But a lot of reliability issues. Ocon did well in holding out, but that was a strategy error. But they were holding. It wasn't a strategy error. It was a strategy gamble.
It was a Hail Mary.
Yeah. Which didn't work, but it should have worked. That should have worked, and I can understand why they were,
based on history of Baku, that should have worked absolutely.
Yeah, it's almost a slam dunk strategy to work in Baku, isn't it?
Yeah. And Magnussen was out there as well doing the same strategy. Hulkenberg, sorry, and I don't think it was wrong at all.
Well, that's all they could do. Starting at the back from the pits, that's all they could do realistically. It got them into the points, and if there'd been a red flag mid-race, they'd have swapped to the mediums and potentially held on till the end. So yeah, it could have worked, but it is always a gamble
from that, going forward.
Right, should we talk about pit race?
Yeah, I can't believe we've been on this podcast for like 45 minutes and we haven't mentioned the pit lane.
Antics debacle. Yeah,
I mean,
we were chatting on the old Grid Talk chat there, and I think I've got very different opinions to you, Tom.
Well, look, at the end of the day, it was ridiculous. They shouldn't have put the barriers out when they did when the thing was.
I think we can all agree on that. But they do this. They do that every race, and they must
make it right.
They said no. They must. Sorry, it doesn't make it right, and I agree. They must do that every race. They said they tried to sort of hide it. Oh, they went out early. I don't think they do, because there is no way they get all those barriers out and the press there by the time the race finishes without doing it during the race. So they need to rechange this idea. They need to either make Parc Fermé bigger, make the idea of where Parc Fermé go, seep into another garage or whatever. They need to either create a secondary barrier space for where the press can be, or not have the press there at all to look at cars that have just finished and not in the 1, 2, and 3. I don't know what the answer is, but they need to.
The difficulty was the Ocon was the last car on track that hadn't been lapped, or one of the last cars on track that hadn't been lapped. So as a result, Verstappen was coming round 2 turns from the end of the race.
Perez.
And Perez. I just assumed.
I know.
Yep.
Well,
Verstappen was as well. He was just behind Perez. But so the Red Bulls were coming round for the last couple of corners to win the race, and Ocon was entering the pit lane.
But
he was just starting his last lap.
Hang on, that still means they have another lap. A cool down lap.
That's what I mean. He was just starting his last lap.
Yeah.
So when they crossed the line, When the first car crosses the line, in theory, once that first car crosses the line, nobody is going to come into pits until that first car goes back round, because that then means everyone is on their final lap as soon as he crosses the line.
That should have been where that line is then, isn't it?
Yeah, they shouldn't have opened those barriers until Verstappen had crossed the line, or Perez, or whichever one was first. Until the first driver crosses the line, that's when they can do it. Because if people have been lapped by that point, they can't come into the pits because they're on their final lap anyway, and they've got to cross the line. So there's no point coming into pit. So at that point, you can do that. You can say you can open it up there because he's now crossed the line to win the race. Everyone else is on their final lap, but it can't be before that, because what happened there? Ocon came in on his last lap, or at the start of his last lap, and Verstappen and Perez were coming around the last corner to win the race. So that was the problem for me. But I know where you're getting at with the difference of opinion, because I don't think Ocon is completely blameless, and you probably do.
I do. I think Ocon is completely blameless. There is no reason why he should have slowed down. He was slowed down to the pit limiter. He was not fined. If he was speeding in the pits, I could understand it. For you to say that he was in the wrong suggests that the pit limiter needs to go down to a level where he will lesser injure, such as 30 mile an hour instead of 30 kilometer an hour to 50, or whatever the limit, 80 kilometer at the moment, down to 50. That's what you would be saying, because there are people in the pits, and why is a photographer's life more important than a mechanic's life? Bearing in mind the mechanics are actually doing a job and are more distracted than the photographer, which aren't actually doing the job at that precise second in time. So you saying that they should be, Ocon is blameless. He should not have broken. They got out of the way. I think the onboard looks worse than the actual above shots. If you see the one from the distance, they move quite quickly. They're out of the way. They're not even close. They're well over to the barrier by the point of him actually passing anyone. There doesn't feel like he's clipping anyone or anywhere near. That comes in on that entrance as well. It's a very blind entrance, because they have that little zigzag before chicane, if you want to call it that, before they entered the pits. And he had not much choice. He was braking, he was slowing, he was in the pit limiter. He did nothing wrong.
Right, so why
should he slow down?
My point was, yes, he was at the pit limiter, but if I have a flesh and blood human being standing in the fast lane, which a mechanic will never be doing because they're trained and they know what they're doing, if there's flesh and blood standing in the fast lane, you stop. You don't keep going at 70 miles an hour. If you're driving on a motorway and someone's standing there, you're going to brake, aren't you? I don't see what the race. It was the race was done. He'd tried this Hail Mary strategy. It didn't work. He had to fulfill the regulations by coming into the pits.
How do you know he didn't brake?
Because we saw it on the onboard. Because he was down to the limiter and he just kept going and he didn't slow down beyond that point. Yes, he was going the pit lane limiter, and obviously they shouldn't have been there. That is not his fault that those people are there. I just thought that given there was absolutely nothing to play for,
there isn't,
because he was on the last lap. He was holding out for a freak strategy to happen. It didn't work. He had to satisfy the regulations by coming to the pits. Oh well, we gave it a try. I'm now going to be last on track. Okay, never mind. Coming to the pits. What was the problem in just, you know what? Oh crap, there's people ahead of me. I better slow down a bit more just to make sure that they don't, because what was happening was photographers were going into the fast lane, seeing the car, then going out of the fast lane, but other photographers were still flooding in, and they were like they were stepping out into the fast lane once the other ones were going out of the way. And that was the problem, that it was a completely unreadable situation. He had no idea what was going on there. He should have dropped to a crawl like when they do when they come to the grid and just worked his way through and then argued it out afterwards and said, look, I've lost loads of time in the pits because of your problem. Not that it would have made any difference in the long run, but my issue was that he just kept going on the limiter when he was inches away from people that weren't trained to be where they were. Not his fault, but he should have slowed down. That was my problem.
I think you both raised like good important points. I mean, like you say, Tom, if someone's in the road, then surely you just stop. I think Ocon lifted a little bit. I don't really know what more he can do there. I mean, yeah,
he could have jammed on the brakes. I think that could have caused even more problems.
Yeah, the what if is, if he jammed on the brakes, locked up and lost control, or if one of the people there fell over, he hasn't broken enough. first point of order is they should never have been there, and that is the last point, because they just shouldn't be there. I was listening to the race podcast this morning, and they were saying maybe they should be held in the garage, in the Parc Fermé garage, where they weigh the drivers and everything, until the last car has crossed the finish line and taken the checkered flag, because they can still get to where they need to be. It's just right there. They're just wanting to be there waiting and prepared and stuff. So it was just a really badly organised job by the people in charge there of that bit, by the FIA, which should we be surprised?
The other thing you could do, which I
so
don't think
boring though, isn't it? The
you
FIA.
shouldn't have to. You shouldn't have to do this, but what you could do is say, as soon as the winner of the race crosses the finish line, the pit lane is closed. You could say that, because then that will stop people coming in at the end, because it still wouldn't have made a change for what happened on Sunday, because Ocon still would have come in because he was ahead of that last driver. But then you could say categorically, once the checkered flag has been flown, that barrier comes across, and you have to go round and finish that last lap. You can't come in and retire on the last lap. If not, you stop on track. And it doesn't matter if you stop on track, because the race is already finished anyway. So maybe you shouldn't have to do that, but maybe that's a way to guarantee that you're never going to have this situation happen again.
Yeah, it's almost as soon as that final,
I say never happen again. It still would have happened in that situation, because they let them on track while the race was still going on. So,
what I am intrigued about is who did it. And I'd love to know what the FIA are saying.
Give us names.
But no. But is it the local security firm that let it on, thinking it was the race?
I did hear this
who got the call in.
Well, you've got these FIA stewards, not the stewards, but people stewarding is what I mean, in like marshals effectively, but employed by the FIA that deal with the Parc Fermé and open up the barriers for the press to come on track. And apparently,
are they locals?
No. They work for the FIA. So whether they're contracted to the FIA,
well, that's the problem.
I don't know. But these are people that work for the FIA. And they were the ones that opened up the barriers, because apparently there was I wish I could remember which podcast it was. I think it may have been the Strategy Report, not Strategy Report, Box of Neutrals with Michael Lamonato. I think he said that one of the broadcasters, might have been Sky, might have been F1 TV, he was standing at a barrier that a marshal opened up, and they had to say to them, "No, you can't open that barrier yet." Oh, was it Ted? You can't open that barrier yet.
Ted reminded security at their barrier, because they were at the barrier further on by Red Bull. There was two entrances, like the mechanics entrance or something. He was saying.
So when you've got the broadcaster telling the FIA that they can't open the barrier,
he said it was security. He said that was security.
Okay.
And that's the thing. Who is putting that call in?
Yeah.
Is it going from the FIA down to a head of ops and a security firm that's a local firm that's really not too sure what the rules are and regs? Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And are just taking. Did the FIA put that call in early? Did someone in the ops go, "Well, that's the final corner, grand, let's all go"? Like those Parc Fermé barriers are there so early. You can actually see them a lot earlier than they appear. They're not thrown out. People must be walking around that pit, throwing out those Parc Fermé barriers halfway through the race.
Probably not halfway through the race, but yeah.
Well, watch it happen, because they must be there a good whiling before the race.
They were there when Hulkenberg pitted, which I think was the lap before.
Yeah. So there are people walking around the pits that might not be the team that know exactly what they're doing.
As long as they don't go beyond the garage demarcation, then I'm not massively against that, unless of course George Russell's entering the pits.
But this is then you've maybe got to watch out. This is slightly the problem, is that, which was completely legal, by the way.
No. You can if there's space, you can race in the pit lane. Yeah. It is part of the racetrack.
So many drivers will do well to remember that. If there's space, you can race.
Yep.
Yeah.
Max. George.
What is the madness? I think they need to rethink the Parc Fermé, the winners. Why don't they just do Parc Fermé straight on the track? Of their own selves or something?
They do sometimes for the winners, don't they? The top three.
Yeah,
they do sometimes do
like
They have them stuck on the grid on qualifying, don't they?
Or do something sensible where everyone then has to go through the pits, because what they're doing is they weirdly do it really backwards, because they put the race cars in the garage lane and then the pedestrians in the middle of the road, the racetrack. And they do this every time, like nearly every time. It seems to be this running thing. And I just like, why is that? That doesn't seem safe anyway. What suddenly changes that from being safe to not safe? I don't quite get that. And sorry, a slip of the foot is not going to stop those barriers. Those barriers are not going to help a photographer when they fly forwards, or something happens or an engine happens. There needs to be a bit more protection around the safety of a car,
Well, I guess that kind of runs nicely onto the next question, which is...
Who's our dick of the day?
Are we all agreed it's the FIA?
Yeah, boring.
Oh, no.
No? Okay, go on, Aaron.
I'm going to go for De Vries.
He was
just
a dick. He's
shit,
just
he wasn't
shit.
That's
not
point.
a dick move. That's a shit move.
Yeah, he was dick of the day because he was the worst driver on track because he crashed. It was the most silly little crash as well. So, I mean, he's a world champion. For Christ's sake.
He's a shit driver. Just because I could win in driving a fucking go-kart round. Not that it would happen. That does not mean I can drive a Formula One car. He's still shit. My dick of the day. My dick of the day. It's hard because it's dick of the day and not dick of the weekend. My dick of the weekend would be Verstappen or Horner's got a big chance being dick of the day there for his Perez.
Now, Horner's dick of the decade for me.
Dick of the millennium.
No, I'm sorry, but it probably is the FIA again. Boringly, steward it.
Yeah,
again.
shame again.
Boring.
Driver of the day.
Yes. Alonso.
Yeah, I mean, he was working through some problems, wasn't he? He had the DRS issue. I mean, that was more... Issue. Certainly over the weekend.
Also played a great race, did some great overtakes. Like the bits of exciting racing that we did get, Alonso was involved in them.
If you're not going for Perez because he's in the best car, then he's a good shout, Alonso, definitely. Mm-hmm. Your thoughts, Aaron?
Perez is great.
I have a love-hate relationship with Fernando Alonso.
Yeah, so do I.
He does things. He does things. I'm like,
that'd be her next record.
He does things that make me really, really frustrated with him. But then he is such a fantastic driver. So, if you're not going to go for Perez, then I think Alonso is a fair shout. But mine goes for Perez because he simply outdrove Max Verstappen, and you don't get to say that very often.
Yeah, I think Charles Leclerc definitely needs a shout as well because 2 qualifying sessions, 2 pole positions. I know one was only technically a pole, and then he had nothing. There was nothing more he could do. It's the loneliest race in history. He said in the cool down room, but to fight the way he did to get into
what was that when he was sat in the middle chair and then he went on to the second podium place?
Yeah, I was just going to say that.
Yeah, but he was just so much faster than his teammate as well, and Carlos Sainz is no slouch. So I think, for me, it's Perez. I said it on Grid Talk, and I reiterate it, but I think Perez and Alonso definitely get shouts. So I'll Leclerc and Alonso. So if you're gonna say Alonso, Carl, then I'll say Leclerc, and then that one we've mentioned all top 3 there. So.
Yeah. Honourable mention for Logan Sargent as well. and to be honest, and Norris, because they both did well this weekend.
It's Large and Sojin, isn't it?
Logan and Albon. Albon did a flying weekend.
Ain't got nothing for it.
I feel so gutted for him. He did
a
great
weekend.
He did do well.
He's been on form this season, Albon. He's done really, really well.
As I just slightly adjust my driver ratings for Alex Albon. because I forgot how good a race he had.
Alex Albon was brilliant this week. Like, he should not have been where he was at all.
He didn't have a great Australia, according to my driver rating. He didn't have a great Australia
because he crashed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again,
he didn't do amazing in Saudi Arabia, but he did all right. Bahrain was good. But,
the cats are back.
Yeah, because I left the door open because they were crying outside. So, yeah, welcome back to the podcast, Leo. I even got Max behind me.
There we go. Cool.
Right, I won't bother doing the stand-ins because we've kind of run a little bit long, so I think we'll probably end there. But thank you very much, Aaron, for coming on. Do you want to do a little plug for your ventures?
So you can find me at on YouTube, AHGP, AHGP Pod on Twitter. I do a variety of sort of mini podcasts. I go live after every race. Or it's called Instant Reaction. Sometimes it's like a day late. So it's not so instant. Sometimes it's not instant.
Not so instant reaction.
When it was a day late, I did put not so instant in the title, but that was what it was. Various videos that I get out Tuesdays and Thursdays, predictions, stuff like that. Just, come say hello.
Cool, and thanks for joining us as
Thank
well.
you for joining us.
We want to try and get more people on this
me.
podcast this year and have a few more paid drivers on. And thank you for doing that. We
Where
appreciate
do I rank on the level of paid driverness?
Oh, I think you're a solid Stroll right now. You're
nice.
You're above Joe, and you're kind of at Stroll level.
I haven't reached like Pedro Diniz levels of elite.
Not quite.
Paid driverness.
No. We're saving that for when Bez comes back on after the Spanish Grand Prix.
Right,
on that note,
we've got Miami. We'll see you on the 9th.
See you later.
See you
Bye.
later.
How's your